Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber, and my good mate, Noel Tom. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast. All right, gang, we're back again. This time we're very pleased to welcome our good friend, Damian Rowley, otherwise known as Demon Rides. You can follow him on Instagram and on YouTube under Demon Rides. Damian is an ex-professional motorcyclist. He is currently on a round-the-world trip, and he took a few days out to talk to us and, more importantly, to learn Spanish whilst he's in Guatemala. Stick around until the end. It's a fascinating story. I think you'll enjoy this one. Let's get on with it.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, you're looking well.
I'm trying. I had a little shave before I came on, did my hair.
Have you lost weight being on the road?
I did, but the US screwed that. So before I left, I had lost 10 kilos in total. After Canada, I'd lost a bit of weight in Canada and had an extra hole put in my belt, and then got into the US, and all of a sudden I was able to eat food. And
has it not been sunny at all? Because you still look really pale.
I do have a tan, you cheeky so-and-so. Even Greg mentioned that in my picture. He went, "Oh, you've got a good tan." So you're looking a bit cold there, Noel.
It's not cold in here. It's about 14 degrees in here. It's just not a part of the house that I heat very much. I did once heat this garage, and I ended up with leaking fork seals. And when I went to my local great garage, he said, are you keeping this bike in a warm garage? I was like, yeah. He said, oh, that's why your seals have started leaking.
Get out of it. You've always got an excuse to be a cheapskate, no matter what it is. Oh, no, I don't fly because flying's destroying the planet, rather than it's actually quite expensive to fly anywhere. Oh, no, let's just go to Scotland again.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, France on the train. Trains are okay.
Who is this person from Hull that you keep doing this brilliant impression of?
It's just my impression of both of the hairy bikers in one.
It's not just like your generic northern accent.
Yeah, probably that too. Listen, it's not about us, is it?
No, it's about this narcissistic one here.
It's about Demon Rides. Is that your real name?
Demon is a nickname that I acquired originally at school by a Welsh teacher that I loathed. It disappeared, thankfully. Then when I started at Virgin Limo Bike way back 25 odd years ago, the governor, who is Welsh, he is Welsh, started calling me Demon. And the more I dug my heels in and spat my dummy out about him calling me Demon, the more it stuck. And then before I knew it, it ended up on the back of my racing leathers. It ended up as my website. The Eurosport commentator would use my name, Demon, and it just kind of stuck.
He's been on another fucking podcast before he came on ours. You're lucky, A, we're still talking to you as friends. B,
variety is the spice of life.
Well, it's not going to be fucking 2 hours long, this one, that's for sure.
When your Welsh teacher called you that then, did everyone kind of love it and start calling you it and you hated it? Because it's a pretty mean thing for the teacher to do, isn't it?
Yeah, but we grew up in an era where that was allowed. It's kind of fine, isn't it? It makes you the people you are today.
One of my fondest memories, I used to play rugby at my school, and I think I dropped the ball for the umpteenth time that day. Mr. Grecki, our rugby coach, just shouted across the school playing field, "Oi, Barber, you stairs!" You couldn't say that then, let alone now. So where are you?
Right now, I'm in Antigua that they pronounce it, in Guatemala, about 30k from Guatemala City. I'm learning Spanish. I've had 2 intensive days and my head has gone... So I had a half day today to come and talk to you guys. 7 hours a day for 5 days I'm doing, and I think I've made a mistake. Put it this way, if you don't hear from me again, you know my head's exploded.
Why are you throwing yourself in at the deep end like this? Are you staying there for a long time?
I would like to think I'm staying in a Spanish-speaking country for a long time. So I was in Mexico for almost 3 months. Didn't really pick up any there. I'm going to be in Central America probably for another couple of months before I ship down to South America. And because of the seasons, and if I've got enough funds, I'd like to think I'm going to be in South America for at least a year. So bumbling along the way I am isn't really going to cut it in the middle of nowhere. I can't rely on Google Translate anymore, so I need to learn to speak.
All right, so now we have a little bit of Clive's guitar music. And now we get you to introduce yourself.
My name is Damian Rowley, known as Demon. I'm an ex-professional motorcyclist who is now circumnavigating the globe on a KTM 690. And I'm in Central America at the moment.
You say professional motorcyclist. How does one quantify being a professional motorcyclist? That implies you earn a living from riding a motorcycle.
Exactly. Yes. Someone who is paid to ride a motorcycle is a professional motorcyclist. So I am an ex-London dispatch rider and now a former or ex-London motorcycle taxi, former motorsport instructor at Donning Park and former racer. So kind of earned my money from two wheels for a while.
I think that easily qualifies you to say professional motorcyclist. You once caught a bike taxi, Clive, didn't you?
I did. I didn't even have to pay, though, so it was an amateur that I did it with. Yeah, you very kindly gave me a lift from Euston Station once to the bike shed, which was ace, actually. It's really good fun. So tell us a little bit about your racing career and how often you would beat Gordon Blackley.
I would like to say I kicked Gordon's arse loads of times, but for some reason I didn't. I do know why. I bent my bike round 2 in 1997. I just qualified 2/10 off pole behind of a well-known world superbike champion called James Toseland. And I think Gordon was just in front of me or just behind me. But then I launched my bike and bent it, and not having enough funds, I spent the rest of the season on a bent motorbike. And then the next season, he went off to a different championship. So we never raced against each other again. That's it. My racer excuse number 134 from page 57.
What brought your racing career to an end?
What brought my racing career to an end? I was rubbish. No, I stepped up to the World Championship doing the World Endurance with Phase 1 in 2006. I had an absolutely incredible season. We finished 9th in the World Championship that year, racing an R1. And then the next couple of seasons, I raced for lesser teams. Recession hit. And trying to find £50,000 a year to go racing was proving very, very difficult. And in the World Endurance, you've got, on average, a full grid at Le Mans is 64 teams qualifying for 56 places. 2009, when the recession had hit, you had 40 teams entering what used to be 60 odd. So all of a sudden you've got 20 odd, 4 teams with 3 riders without a seat, and whoever had the most money and what have you got rides, and I could only get about 20 grand together that year. So at the grand old age of 37, that was the end of my second stint at racing.
But you've been doing it since you were how old?
I didn't start riding bikes until I was 16, and I was riding far too fast on the road. Every corner was a racetrack for me. Every roundabout, you know, I got the nickname Roundabout Rowley because I just went round and round and round these roundabouts. And I'd gone down to Brands with a mate of mine on a GSXR and sitting there watching his club racing. I said to him, I'm going to do that. And he just laughed at me. So then I was almost 20 when I started racing. I bought myself a 350 power valve and started doing club championship. Mixed success. Stepped up to British Championship in 97 is where I raced against Gordon and James Toseland and some amazing riders who went on to do all sorts. Did a few years of British Championship, some big injuries, and that kind of pulled the plug on my racing. And then just by pure accident, I met a client who sponsored riders, and he said to me, if you ever want to go back to racing, let me know. I had a chat with my old engine tuner who now runs MHP, which is Mark Hill, MHP Exhaust. I said, hey, fancy doing this UK Endurance Championship? So I went off and did that with him, and then 2005 finished second in the British Championship, and that's when I went off to the World Championship. So I was a late starter at 19 and late just getting into motorbikes at 16. So my racing career was mixed. I had some good results and terrible results. That's racing, isn't it? You know, injuries, funds, machinery. I mean, there was points I was taking tyres out of the skip from the better teams and putting them on back to front. So I had the good grip on one side, just hoped it didn't rain. And that was sometimes how I was funding it. But it wasn't until 2004 when I went back that I actually started getting help because I started getting good results. And then it seemed to be the more help you got, other people wanted to be on board. So I had Mitsubishi sponsoring me in 2006, giving me a car and some funds. And, you know, I had helmet sponsors by then and boot sponsors. But the early days were hard. Money. It's the same for every sport, I suppose.
So with all this motorcycling going on in your life, were you still going to the Alps for your holidays in the summer? And
not at all. At 17, my apprenticeship, I was an HGV lorry mechanic, went down the pan. Cut a long story short, I thought, I'll go and ride a bike for 6 months as a dispatch rider. And that turned into 10 years of being a motorcycle courier. So when you're doing 50,000 miles a year, I would still go to bike rallies and stuff like that, but I didn't venture abroad. And it wasn't really until, I suppose, just with my ex-wife, she was from Normandy in France. I'd go to France to do trips, but it was literally to visit family. There was no touring. I had no desire to ride more when I rode all week long.
Tell us a little bit about the taxi biking then. You were based in London. I know that much. What sort of trips were you doing? And I also know you ran some fairly high-level celebrities around as well.
Yeah, high-level celebrities, some politicians, some lords and ladies, Hollywood stars, models, TV presenters, all sorts. When I started racing in the British Championship, I was racing with a guy, and he's going to love this because I'm going to mention his name now, a guy called Rhys Boyd. Banzai Boyd, he was known, a fast racer. We became firm friends after a crash that we had at Brands Hatch together where I ran into the back of him.
It's always you that's fucking crashing into people, isn't it?
Well, to be fair, someone ran into the back of me, so I ran into the back of him, and someone ran into the back, so 6 of us went down together, and we won Crash of the Year in Superbike magazine. We beat the famous Chris Walker crash at Cascades. Anyway, in 97, he just started at what was then called Virgin Limo Bike, which was Virgin's taxi bike firm, basically, which was to run the upper class passengers to and from the airport. And it grew to everybody wanted to use it. And basically, I knew that I no longer wanted to be a dispatch rider. I wanted to do this. So instead of having parcels on the bike, I'd have people. And I went in enough to basically annoy them that to give me a job was the best way to shut me up. So after 18 months of perseverance, at the grand old age of 26, became a London motorcycle taxi. With back then it was called Virgin Limo Bike. We did a lot of corporate business stuff, people to and from the airports, TV stuff, model work, Grand Prix, Ascot, all the big events where you'd find traffic. We were ferrying clients in and out, and give or take a bit, I did that for 25 years. I'd be running people like Lord William Hague around, Boris Johnson, David Cameron, Cara Delevingne, Sir Kenneth Branagh.
When you went from being a bike courier to the bike taxi, even though you're still in London, you're still on your motorbike, did it feel like a completely different way of life?
Totally different life. Firstly, when I went to buildings, I didn't get treated like a piece of shit. You get the security guy, no, parcels round about, blah, blah. And I go, no, I'm here for such, I'm a taxi. Like, oh, come in. Do you want a cup of coffee? Do you want to sit down? And I also got, through dealing with a lot of high-profile celebrities as businessmen and things like that, got treated completely different to just being a skanky dispatch rider. I felt special, to be privileged to be doing the job only a few people even got in to do. Even at the height of the industry, there was only 10 of us doing it in the whole country. So to be one of that elite lot, being trusted with these people, I felt amazing. It was a dream. I was getting paid to ride. Back then it was an ST 1100 that eventually we were riding the FJR 1300. I felt special.
Did you have to develop a sense of when to chat and when not to chat?
You learn. Some people just don't have conversation. Other people's, they love chatting. And then you've got it where you see people regularly, you learn their mood swings. You learn when to shut up, when to talk. Like everybody, they've got things going on. They're tired. They're whatever. So yeah, you learn when to shut up. And then there was a few clients I didn't like, so I'd just disconnect the intercom or something so I didn't have to talk to them.
That was my next question. Who's the biggest tipper? And excluding me, who was the biggest wanker?
The biggest tipper was the guy who recently married the great-granddaughter of the man who came out with Coca-Cola. He slipped me a few dollars after I spent the day with him, and I thought $20, $30. Anyway, when I eventually got on the road, I took it out. He tipped me $500. I was just like... And the biggest wanker, well, yeah, we'll keep that one under wraps.
I imagine it's a funny thing in these days. You can get into a cab and you can get on your phone or get your laptop out even, but on the back of a bike, probably one of the few times where they just have to be focused on what's happening around them.
Yes and no. You've got a lot of people who would sit there, they'll be doing their emails off the back of the bike. Back then, you didn't have the phone connected to the intercoms because it was a hardwired thing. But then when Bluetooth happened, sometimes they'd be doing their meetings from the back of the bike. And some people would just stick their phone in their pocket and just sit there for the half hour, 40 minutes, whatever it is, and just shut off from the world. The thing they always knew is when they got on the bike, they would get off the other end on time. And that was what people wanted.
Did anyone ever say that they really enjoyed actually being on a motorbike?
Yeah. We had clients who then went out and did their own test because I'm like, well, why have I waited so long? This has been amazing. Some of those guys went off and did like the Royal Enfields in the Himalayas, or Himalayas as it's called. They really fell for motorbikes. In fact, the guy who started Expedia, Simon Breakwell, he was a massive cyclist, started using us and then went and bought his own bike. We've had a few celebrities, Dermot O'Leary, for example, who did his test because of us. Their introduction to the bikes was good. They weren't scared off, and it became a passion for them as well. But also many of our clients we would see time and time again. So you would build relationships with people. You'd also get requests. I got to the point that I was getting requested by David Beckham because he trusted me. His security knew who I was. The first time I went to pick him up, this guy came over to me. Oh, what are you doing here? I'm like, oh, I'm just waiting for someone. Oh, so who are you waiting for then? I'm like, no one special. All right, okay, I'm David's security. And I think the fact that I kept my mouth shut and didn't say anything, that was a a brownie point. And that was always one of the things with Limo Bike. We're trusted with very high profile people's phone numbers, emails, addresses. We will always keep the mouth stum. So that was nice to then have those regular requests.
Until now.
Yeah, because I don't work there anymore, so it doesn't matter.
Were you ever chased by the paparazzi?
Multiple times. I unfortunately scared one of my clients. She just said, lose them. Don't say that to a racer.
And could you lose them with a pillion on in London?
Yeah, because I'm good.
You could lose a car on a bicycle in London.
Some of the scooters were hard and they would chase you for a bit, but they would get to the point that you were just good.
Now's time for that guitar music again. We don't normally say this. I don't know why we're saying it now. Tell us a little bit about your trip. Again, high level, briefly. Where have you been? Where are you going? And how long you're doing it for?
And also, what led up to it? What made you? When did you start thinking, sod this, I want to go off on my motorbike for a long time?
May 2024, I shipped my bike to Toronto and I decided I was going to do the Americas before Southeast and Central Asia due to that Russian idiot called Putin who decided to kick off. So yeah, shipped my bike to Toronto. I rode down into New York State through Pennsylvania down to Mississippi along the BDR and along parts of the Trans-America Trail. I then headed north, ended up in Canada, all the way up to Tuktoyaktuk at the top of the Arctic Circle. Quick trip out to Alaska, back down to Vancouver, back into the US, and I've made my way through the US to Baja, across to mainland Mexico, where you now find me in Guatemala.
You're on a KTM something or other.
Yeah, the 690 that everyone loves to want, but scared to own.
But you did loads of prep for this trip, didn't you? Loads of prep to the bike. You pretty much, am I right in saying you sold everything?
I sold a lot of stuff, which was hard, but I'd got to a point in my life that those things had to go to fund this. I stripped the bike down to bare frame, except the engine, rebuilt everything with all the consumable parts, bearings, X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. Basically set off with I suppose, other than the engine, a brand new bike. I think I spent probably 3 months with it in pieces.
How's the trip? Has it turned out to be very different than how you imagined it would turn out? What's been different about it?
The cost. Because of the exchange rate and the fact the US is expensive, and Canada, I'll put the two together, just say North America, that has financially smashed a massive hole in my budget. But the rest of the trip has been what I expected in some ways. There's times it's hard, it's lonely, tiring, but there's also so many rewarding things that I have experienced through people, through sites that I knew was there through doing Vietnam and doing India and stuff. So like everyday life, it's got its highs and lows.
But you've met a lot of great people, it seems, haven't you, along the way?
Yeah, I have.
And you've been riding quite a lot with that little lad, haven't you, that Charlie that we know?
Yeah, wee man, as we call him.
He's not a child. He's a fully grown adult. That's just how big he is.
He's only fully grown when he stood on a box. No, bless him. I have to mention Charlie. Charlie and I met at the Lightweight Adventurous Festival the same time that you and I were all stood there getting very cold and wet. It turned out he was going to do a similar trip to me. So I said, hey, why don't we start this off together? And originally the trip was meant to be solo. And I was a little unsure about doing it with someone. Then he met me in Toronto. We did the first couple of weeks together. After 2 weeks, we went separate ways. We had handbags at dawn. Said, I never want to see you again. I unfriended him and everything. But anyway, he followed me. We met up a couple of weeks later. And then we spent the next, I don't know, whatever it was, must have been another couple of months together. And then in Washington State, we split up again. And when I say split up, we weren't having an argument. We had different plans. And then we were separate for a couple of months. And then we rejoined again in Arizona just before crossing the border into Mexico. And then we spent all of Mexico together until his KTM broke. So he's now back in the UK and I set off without him.
What happened to his bike? I didn't see this.
Shall I say? So he had that cam node things are wearing down. So he had them replaced 25,000 miles ago and the same things happened again. KTM, to be fair, it took them a while to get there, but they're actually sorting it all out.
They jumped straight on it. He had to drop it off at a dealer in Mexico. They ordered the parts from the US. I know at the moment the parts are in customs, so they're on it. They haven't denied anything this time. They're on the case of fixing it for him. Fingers crossed. No diss to KTM. They've been good.
So he's come home for a bit and then he's coming back again?
He's coming back to the UK to do some work, earn a bit of money while the bike's sitting doing nothing rather than spend money on a hotel.
I think by the time he gets back, I'll have probably been a month ahead. I mean, I'm sitting here for a week at the moment, say, doing this Spanish course and trying to get my visa sorted for Honduras, which is proving to be a bit of a mission on its own. Maybe I'll see him again in Colombia. Who knows?
What's it like having been away for such a long period of time? If I went away, I always think that after about 2 weeks, I'd kind of be thinking,
I keep pinching myself. Am I really doing this? It's something I dreamt of for a long time, and I keep pinching myself. Some days I have more so since Christmas and New Year, I've had my moments where I have missed a few things, but then the next day I see something completely different. Crossing the border from Mexico into Guatemala was just amazing, the change, and I'm now in the jungle and stuff. So I think because every day is constantly changing, you get that, well, almost like you don't feel how long you've been away. I've been away for 8 months now.
is it hard to stop, or do you continuously want to keep moving in a way?
I have a problem with stopping because my life was always go, 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 go. I do have a problem with stopping. I want to cover ground, but then when I do stop, I realise how much I see. For me, it's a battle to try and slow myself down, but every day is rewarding in different ways.
I think that'd be the worst thing, wouldn't it? You get to Ushuaia and just think, oh, I got to Ushuaia, and then you think, fucking hell, I wish I'd gone a bit slower. I could have enjoyed it a bit more and seen a few more things.
Well, I have to slow down because of the seasons. I'm going to get the seasons completely wrong. Ushuaia is now coming into its summer. By the time I get to Colombia, it'll start becoming into autumn. So I have to slow myself down. Otherwise, I'm going to get there, hence being in Mexico for 3 months. The US and Canada, I had a time frame because of the weather, and I hit that just about right. So when I was coming down through California, it was 0 degrees overnight. So I got into Mexico at the right time.
Would it be fair to say that the way you've done it, flying into Canada and spending time in Canada and the US, has kind of eased you into more adventurous riding as you head south into Mexico and into Central America?
Yeah, I felt like a fraud.
Why? Why'd you say why?
Because it was English speaking. You know, to land in the US and then into Canada, an English-speaking country, I felt like a fraud for 5 months.
Because it just felt too easy in a way.
Yeah. I mean, you know, don't get me wrong, the riding and, you know, up in Canada and forest fires and bears and seeing all the things that you see is amazing. And that's a real part of the journey. And doing the Dempster Highway up to the Arctic Ocean was all incredible. But I can communicate with everyone. I can get parts for my bike within reason. Things are very easy to achieve. So I felt like a fraud, but getting deeper into Mexico, having a bike issue, not speaking the language has proved more challenging. And now I really do genuinely feel like I'm an adventure rider or whatever you want to call us. So doing it that way has eased me into it, yes. It taught me my trade, so to speak.
I can understand that, but it seems a shame that you did feel like that. It's still another country, it's another culture. It's always a funny thing, I think, with America, that, yeah, we speak the same language, but we're completely different, really, aren't we?
I struggled with the fact that I didn't get on my bike and leave home and ride through the tunnel or train through the tunnel and go across the way I wanted to, out to Mongolia that way. Sticking it on a plane it felt like cheating, but also at the same time it's not, because there's still massive challenges that I'm having to deal with. So I don't know, maybe I'm being hard on myself, but
I think you are, because it's really difficult to ride across the Atlantic Ocean.
I thought about paddling it. KTMs don't swim.
Has it been an advantage being English in America?
The Americans are so friendly. They love seeing the number plate. I mean, at first they were like, oh, is that from Canada? And you're like, no, it's UK. And they're like, oh, wow, that's amazing. It has opened up a lot of doors, being able just to talk to people constantly. They all want to know about you. The Americans have been the most hospitable, generous people. Don't get me wrong, the Canadians were friendly, but the Americans, literally, you're the best friend. You're a family member overnight. And that has just been, but it's blown me away on so many levels. I was in Salt Lake City looking for some bike parts and boots because my boots had failed. And this guy was chatting to me because he had a 701. Anyway, I've gone into the shop. He's come in 5 minutes later and I just want to shake your hand, and put something in my hand as he left. When he left, I looked at it, he'd just put $100 in my hand. You know, I had other people using Bunker Biker, and she was out of work, but she said, look, my son will let you in, use my bed because I've got somebody else in the guest room. I never met her. She come back in the morning from work just to cook us breakfast before I left. And that's just been the most amazing experiences. And I think part of it being a nomadic traveller, but also being English has helped on that level.
Yeah, I'd imagine it will help in Central and South America as well. Once they realise you're not American, you'll probably
Second they find out you're not American, you do get treated slightly differently, actually. Sorry, Americans, but I didn't do that.
So riding through the States, you've been using the BDRs quite a bit, haven't you? How have you found those trails?
That's quite a hard one to answer because the BDRs tend to run north to south, except the Mid-Atlantic one that kind of runs across an angle, which I use to get down to the Transamerica Trail. The BDRs, I did the Mid-Atlantic BDR, which was mainly gravel roads through the Appalachian Mountains, which was incredible. But after 7 days of seeing the same thing, I did do a bit of roads to jump down to the TAT. The Washington BDR was absolutely incredible. Washington State, that was incredible. Some technical riding, some tricky stuff over through the mountains. That was awesome. I did a bit of the North California one, which was really actually quite hard because my overloaded bike, we won't even go there, in sand, and sometimes the sand was deep. That was quite hard. Because they're running north to south and I was doing that across the country, zigzagging, going in and out of places, I couldn't do as much of them as I wanted to. I think you could spend years doing them because there's so much. It's just incredible the amount of off-road riding that is available here. It's just incredible.
What have you taken too much of?
Everything. I have jettisoned so much stuff. I had too much clothes. I had too many what ifs, too much of this, too much of that, and I've been getting rid of stuff. Now my battle is trying to decide whether I throw away the spares, because I am carrying spares. Some of them I have used and I've needed, but I am battling with that, throwing those away now.
Could you meet somebody online and just leave them a box and say, look, if I get somewhere, can you just DHL this to me?
I could, but the problem is getting stuff DHL'd into Central America, it's the customs are the issue. So sometimes you don't get it because it sits in customs for weeks and weeks. But I'm travelling at the moment with a certain round the world Paul, you might have seen his stuff, who travels mega light, and he keeps looking and judging me. Gives me that sideways glance with the amount of stuff I've got. So I am now really trying to lose some more stuff because, I'm still trying to lose stuff.
So you've got the infamous Darien Gap coming up fairly soon. How long is it going to be till you get there, and what's your plan for the gap? What sort of boat are you going to build?
There's two. So there was Dylan with his raft, and then there's Beemore Charles, who bought a dugout canoe, didn't he? Me and water don't mix. I swim like a brick. So I'm going to cheat and jump on a plane. Unfortunately, all the boats that used to go, because of Colombia now, you can't enter the country on a boat. So the only way is to air freight it. So I will be air freighting it from Panama City to Bogota, and I'll be jumping on a plane and doing that.
Ever so slightly disappointing, but absolutely what the fuck I would be doing as well.
I did think about hiking through the Darien Gap, but no.
No.
How long are you going to spend in Central America versus South America, and how much longer have you got until the money runs out?
It depends how tight I keep my purse strings. So I'm going to probably be in Central America only for another couple of months. Parts of it, I think I'm going to whiz through Honduras. I'm not really too fussed about that. Costa Rica's expensive. I will do a little bit there. So I think by the time I get to Panama, it'll probably be about 6 to 8 weeks, and then I'll jump down to South America. Then the plan is to ride around Colombia, maybe some of Brazil. I've been talking to Paul about, I can't even remember what the name of the road is now. It's a bit like the Road of Bones, but it's one in Brazil. It's 700 kilometers long. So I might be doing that with him. After that, I will make my way down to Ushuaia for about this time next year. When I get there, I've obviously got to turn north to come back up to Buenos Aires or Santiago. If I've got the funds, I would like to ship it to Southeast Asia. Again, it comes down to visas, carnets and funds. I would like to think that I could ride back through the Stans and do the Pamir Highway, maybe India, Nepal, maybe China, but it's money. Unfortunately, I don't have a bottomless pit, so that will decide whether it becomes a round the world trip or I'm shipping it home because I'm skint.
Is it just money, or is it money and time, or is time not part of it really?
Time's not a problem because I quit my job, rented my house out and left the country. So it's not a time thing. It is a funds thing, and we'll see what happens there. Making the decision in the first place to change my life dramatically was hard. You know, I quit a job that I loved, but I began to hate. And it wasn't the job, it was the way the environment I was working in had changed. I had a back injury 6-7 years ago that changed my life. Hitting that 46 mark, going through a midlife crisis, or as I call it, a midlife awakening, and realizing that I have less life left than I've had, and I no longer want to exist just to pay the bills. That had an effect on me. Having to end an 8-year relationship because it wasn't right for what I wanted. All of these things were building up for me over 4 or 5 years that I hadn't realised how much my life was becoming dominated by stress. I know they all go on about mental health, and I don't really think I was mental. Well, I suppose I am to ride a motorbike, but I do know that the multiple fires that I was fighting was putting me under so much pressure with stress that it was killing me inside, and I had to change those things. So I'm not in a hurry to rush back. Some people say, have you run away? Yeah, maybe. Maybe I've run away. Maybe I've run away to find my future, because my future was no longer riding around London for a living. I have some ideas of what I would like to do when I come back. If I come back, I might find somewhere that I go, do you know what? This is where I want to be.
You might meet a woman.
Yeah.
Don't say it like that. Obviously, you've had hours of helmet time to think about your life. Have you thought about your life differently away from London and away from your old life?
I have done, and I was doing for probably the 5 years building up to me leaving. I'll bore you and wind the clock back. Myself and my ex-girlfriend wanted to buy a plot of land and build a house, and I was going to stop doing the limo bike stuff and be mortgage free and maybe do a bit of bike prep, maybe a bit of instruction work, multiple things that I've done over the years that I have self-built sort of skills in. I've restored cars, built custom bikes. So I kind of thought maybe just things like that and get my finger in a few pots so that I can have an easier life. That was already there long before this journey started. So I know that when I go back, I don't want to go into the stress and madness of London life like I was. It could be a case of I step further away from London, but use my contacts through the corporate world that I have built over the years. I've got a lot of high-profile people who would like me to write a book about my journey. And this is, when I say journey, I don't mean the physical journey of riding the bike. This is the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual journey of how I'm changing, how I'm rediscovering who I am now in my 50s. Oh, God, I hate that number. Yeah, who I am now in my 50s, because I'm no longer that 20-year-old racer or that 30-year-old. I'm a different person. I've learnt a lot about myself and how I've changed subconsciously. And this journey is reiterating some of the things that I already knew. I would like to think that when I return from this journey, I'll have, some moment of clarity where I go, and know my path. I have an idea of what I would like to achieve at the end of this journey.
But do you think it's helped thinking about it being away from home and having all that time?
For sure, because I've had to reevaluate what's important to me. And I think all those shiny things we surround ourselves with, motorbikes, our cars, our stereos, our TVs, whatever they are, what do they actually mean? They might bring you moments of joy where you get those endorphins flowing and go, oh, wow, I really love this. But the rest of the time, how much do they really do for me or for you or for whoever? And I'm getting to that point of, do I need the materialistic stuff that I've had for all those years? What is important? And for me now, experiences are important and not the nice shiny car or motorbike. But I do know that when I come back, I still have to earn an income because we all need shelter and food in our bellies.
Did you feel quite liberated when you did have that big sell-off? When you're left with nothing?
He kept his fucking Mustang, though, didn't he? Oh, the big shiny car means nothing to me apart from the one I've got at home. Hippie with a Mustang.
I've still got my classic car collection. That is my future to help me carry on through the next part of my life.
Very wise.
If I was 25 or 30 and sold everything off, I'd have time to start again. But if I sold everything now, I'd have nothing to help me in the future. I like to think I've been quite wise with setting the foundations for my future. And if I have to sell the classic cars to pay off my mortgage and give myself an easier life, that may be what happens. So if you'd like to buy one, I have one absolutely stunning car for sale.
It is stunning.
Your Mustang is a podcast in itself. Did you ever see the pictures, Clive, of the, of the Mustang and the burnt Mustang?
Well, not only the Mustang, but also the Cafe Racer Honda, just absolutely beautiful. And you do all the work yourself, and they are
high-end stuff, isn't it?
Not only high-end work, but so utterly right as well. All the lines on them are just perfect. If I'd had the money, I would have bought that Honda off you.
Thank you. I'm flattered because when you build it for yourself, you know what you like, but when somebody else appreciates it, then you know you've done it right.
Because this is a slightly bike-related podcast, just tell us about the bike that you built that got shown at the bike shed.
My ex-girlfriend was riding a bike about, and she wanted me to go ride at weekends, but I was riding the FJR all week. So I was like, I don't want to do it. So I thought, I need to build something that will give me some passion to go and ride. But I couldn't build a sports bike because I'd ride like a twat. So I thought, I'll build a cafe racer. You know, they're really cool, they're really fun. And without a fairing, that would mean I would go slower. So I bought a 2,600 Hornet with only 7,500 miles on it. It was absolutely mint condition. I took an angle grinder to it and cut it up. And I built a little cafe racer that was then shown at the London Bike Shed show in 2023. They did actually ask me, and they say, you cannot show a bike twice in our show. They called me literally weeks before I left for this journey, asking to have my bike on show on the Michelin stand, and then could they take it and put it in the bike shed in London. But unfortunately, it'd been put into storage and I'd left. I was very honoured to be asked by them to have it back at the show. But yeah, as you say, it's a high-end quality build. I'm anal when it comes to stuff like that. My attention to detail, I like to think, is meticulous, and that's why I produced a show-winning car, a show-winning motorbike. Yeah, I'm quite good with the spanners and a welder and stuff.
So you've still got it?
Yeah, it was up for sale, and I got a call from a guy who was interested in it literally days before I got on the flight, and it was locked away in storage. I couldn't get to it. So when I get back, if anyone wants to buy my beautiful cafe racer, it's never been ridden. It's still up for sale. It's mint.
How are you finding doing the social stuff on the trip? Do you find that it gives you a little bit of purpose? Do you quite enjoy it, or is it a hindrance?
It is a hindrance. It is a full-time job. It's been nice, though, because I've made some good contacts through it. It is hard work, though, trying to put stuff up that people might be interested in. Taking on doing a YouTube series of my journey has been incredibly time-consuming, and I think my latest episode, I'm only just getting into Washington State, so I'm 3 months behind where I genuinely am. Because when you're riding, I
don't want to sound rude, but you've got fuck all else to do.
I know, partying, all of that stuff, sitting on a beach, having a wonderful time. It is a hindrance at times, but when I've edited it and I look back at it, it brings those memories flooding back to me that I've almost forgotten myself. So I'm glad I've done it.
Have you changed the way that you sort of get footage? Are you limiting it so that there's less footage to deal with?
The biggest thing I'm lacking is B-roll stuff, because it's easy to put a camera on your helmet and just get road stuff. And when you're traveling with other people as well, sometimes stopping to get B-roll, you're conscious you're taking up their time. But I have realised that sometimes the riding is just, people aren't interested in it. Even I'm not interested in it. If I'm bored of watching my own, then yeah, cut it out.
Do you listen to stuff as you're riding along?
No, not at all. I did on the FJR, but on the 690, it's so bloody loud, I can't hear anything. I just have earplugs in.
This is interesting because you've given me some good tips over the years. One of them was the waterproof trousers that you recommended to me. And I thought, well, Christ, this guy knows what he's talking about because he's out in all weathers. Have you been happy with your bike choice all the way along?
Yes and no. The 690 is an awesome platform for a travel bike, but through the US and some of the big distances to cover, being on a big single's hard. And now I'm getting deeper into Central America. And when I was on trails and stuff, the 690 is sublime. It's really good. I'm not going to curse myself, touch wood. I am concerned about getting parts if I need them. Whereas if I had a little CRF, that motor is all over South America. Other than that, I love the 690. It's fantastic.
Were you wishing you had something bigger or smaller?
Yeah, something smaller.
Tell me, you mentioned a little while ago that you were riding every day, 5 days a week, and didn't want to go out on your same bike at the weekends. How did you get into the adventure motorcycling thing?
So a mate of mine, pre-COVID, had just set up an adventure travel company, tour company, and I'd been following his round the world journey. The company unfortunately no longer exists because COVID killed it. A guy called Adam Lewis, ex-British Championship racer, set off around the world at the same time as those other two blokes. What was it? That Ewan Geezer, who was a client of ours, and that Charlie bloke. He set off an around the world trip that lasted, I think it was about 6.5 years. He has a website and you should have a look at it because it's amazing. It's called The Short Way Round. He was back after doing years in the Himalayas, working up there doing tours, and set up his own company. I had been looking at adventure travel for a long time, but because I was racing motorbikes, it was not really an option. After I got divorced in 2013, I was like, right, I'm going to go and do something. And I jumped on a plane to Vietnam, got a bike up in Hanoi and rode it down to Saigon. And that was kind of my first ventures into it. A few years later, I went to India, rented a bike in Delhi, did 4 weeks around the north of India, which had now given me the taste for, I really want to do this. So he'd set this company up and he was doing trips to Morocco. And he did 2 types of trips, one for big adventure bikes and one for small bikes, we wanted to do more desert stuff and things like that. And I was like, I want to do this. And he said, well, get the 690 because that will do everything you want. And that's how I ended up getting the adventure bike. And what that also did for me was re-spark my passion for riding. I did green lanes and bits and bobs like that and a couple of trips down to Cornwall on the Great Western Trail and kind of fell in love with it and realised that actually I want to do a lot more. But then COVID killed the business for him. So my Morocco trip never actually happened. Even though I'd done Morocco on a bike before, this was going to be a 3-week trip. Did a trip through Portugal with him, knew that this is what I wanted to do. But I was in a relationship and it wasn't going to work. And I was trying so many ways to think of how do I do this? So I ended everything and here I am now. But that was how I got back into it, was being ignited by Adam's passion for it.
Do you think riding in London and sort of weaving between all the traffic, did that set you in good stead for riding off-road, do you think?
Yeah, completely, especially clutch control. Clutch control is everything.
You took to it easily, would you say?
Yeah, pretty good, because I'd done a little bit of off-road just through the years, done a weekend here, a weekend there. But I think having that natural feel for a motorbike, being an ex-racer, I can kind of adapt to most things that I ride. I did go and do the GS Trophy qualifier in Wales and spent a week with Mark Molly up at Sweet Lamb, riding a big lump of a GS around, and he got me doing things that I never thought I'd ever be doing off-road on a big old bike.
Did Gordon beat you at that as well?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he qualified, I didn't.
He's a prick, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a cock.
I've got one final question, but have you got anything that you would like us to ask you?
It's a really difficult one because I've just got such a broad life on motorbikes. I can talk about one thing for hours. So actually skimming across stuff.
This hour has gone by very quickly, actually, but I just don't want to fucking edit a longer podcast. Because generally we'll end up with like about 50 minutes or something like that, which I think is a good amount of time. To
the only thing I could really think about is my future when I come back. I would like to possibly get into motivational speaking.
I'll ask you that, and I'll ask you another question to end on as well.
Sorry, I'm bursting for the loo, so just let me do that. You ask the question and keep going.
At some point, Damian, you are going to have to come home. The moon's going to run out. What do you think you might do when you get back?
Through some of the high-profile clients I've got, Bob Geldof's manager, who also manages Bear Grylls and people like that, would like me to possibly write a book. I mean, whether that happens or not, unless I've got a good story from it, that may or might not happen. But they've also suggested motivational speaking, because corporate businesses like adventurers. They like people who can think outside the box, people who take control of their lives to help motivate their workers. So maybe in the future, I go down that path. I think also for the difficulties I had with my back injury and how I thought my life had kind of come to an end with the things that I wanted to do because that dominated things, how I've dealt with where I was mentally and physically, because it really did affect my life. It took me probably 4 or 5 years to drag myself through a really dark patch. Maybe this is something that will help me in the future, help other people. I've spoken to quite a lot of people on this journey who have gone, and I'm going through that. And I didn't realise, because I'm understanding myself now and being able to actually talk openly about the issues I've had, and I am still having some of those issues. I think maybe this is something that I can follow on and maybe get to a point that this journey, how it's helping me, I can help other people, especially men, because men don't want to talk about their problems because we're all macho and it's seen as weak. But yet, if you can actually be honest with yourself and, open up and show your vulnerability, that is strength. Yeah, so maybe in the future, this is where I go.
I think you'd be very good at that, because your personality is so great. I warm to you. I hate people, but I warm to you instantly.
Thank you.
And we got somebody to cry on the fucking podcast. We're going to get some kind of award now.
Makes great TV. But this is part of the journey that I've been on, because I'm understanding the real difficulties that I've had. And I never thought that I would have these issues, but I did, and I have, and I've recognized them, and I've taken control of myself and the dark patch that I was in. Like I say, this was 4 or 5 years of difficulties. I was spiraling down, and how I had changed and not knew it. I am now taking those positives from it and building it, and I've become stronger. Like I say, I still have my problems that I'm getting through, but I think just being open and able to talk about it is a positive for me.
What happened to your back?
I had a bad crash 2009. So 2010, day before my birthday, I got taken out by a car, destroyed the bike, and I landed on my back, which started my back issues. Through 30 odd years of riding a motorbike, I had degeneration of 2 of my lower discs, L5, S1, the 2 lower lumbar support. Washing my bike to go and do a charity event for a rugby do. As I bent down, I slipped 2 discs, and that then pressed on my spinal cord, which gave me excruciating sciatica that I suffered for 3.5 years. I had multiple injections in the base of my spine, but they wouldn't operate because it wasn't enough to operate, but yet it was enough to cause me the most excruciating pain that I'd ever experienced in my life. And normally when you break something, you go, oh yeah, 6 weeks, I'll be back on, I'll be doing this, blah, blah, blah. But there was no light at the end of the tunnel, and it put me in a very dark place. It affected my moods. It affected everything I did. It caused me psychological problems. I was living on painkillers. So yeah, it
sounds like it's taken this 8 months to actually realise where you were. You've given yourself some time and some distance away from that person to go, fucking hell, I was in a mess then.
That lasted 3.5, 4 years. At some point, the discs have moved back, and I'm able to do kind of 80% of the stuff that I used to do. It dominated my life. It robbed me of the physical stuff I did. All of these things were affecting me. Long story short, I started running, which helped with my back. What it did do was allow me to regain control of myself. But now I'm in a very different place. I have only probably 20% of the pain that I used to have, which allows me to function again. But I do have back problems that I have to manage. And riding every day isn't good for it. But at the same time, up here, I'm free.
Right, sorry, Clive, we've just given you another 15 minutes to deal with. But it was the best stuff of the whole.
I don't want me bursting into tears.
We don't get into this stuff enough on this thing.
We're going to get a fucking BAFTA or something if we leave the crying, and that'd be great.
Maybe you edit it and you see what you think, because at the end of the day, this is part of my journey. This isn't about ticking boxes. This isn't about saying, oh, I went to there.
Did you cry on the other podcast?
I did have a moment on the Dempster where I had a lump in my throat and I was like, fucking hell. And that was just that sheer exhilaration of
that was more joy, wasn't it, I guess?
Absolutely the most amazing experience to do that. But like I say, this is what my journey is about, dealing with me. And it just happens to be that I'm riding a motorbike around the world. I don't think enough people understand, because people say, oh, why are you on this journey? And people are, oh, I want to see the world. Well, yes, I want to see the world, but I also want to grow as a person. I want to be the better version of who I was, but in my 50s.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. It was great fun catching up with our old pal, Damian. He was out there doing it, living his finest life and allowing us all to live a little vicariously through him. If you do have a friend that you know is going through a bit of a shit time, please reach out to them. Don't wait for them to call you. It's not enough to say you're available for a call. Take them out for a beer, take them out for a ride, pick up the phone, do whatever it takes. I've recently lost a very good friend to suicide, and I know that if I'd got in touch with him at the right time, I probably could have changed something. Also, if you are struggling, then please reach out to somebody, whether it's a friend or to one of the very many mental health charities that are there to help us all at times of need. We've got our very own mental health motorbike charity, mhmotorbike.com, run by bikers for bikers. So just get in touch with them. I was going to say get in touch with me or Noel, but fucking hell, we'd be useless. Hey, look after yourselves. Look after your friends. Take it easy. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you really appreciate what we do, you could consider supporting us on Patreon or buy us a coffee. Links are available on our website, which is tampodcast.com, tampodcast.com, where we also have a limited selection of branded stuff. But either way, please keep listening and spreading the word. See you next time.